Hello, my name is Carol Butsky. I am a certified quilted textile appraiser with the American Quilter Society.
And I'm Carol Elmore, and I'm also a certified quilt appraiser by the American Quilter Society.
We'd like to talk a little bit about the importance of appraisals and why it would be something that you should consider. Appraisals are done for three distinct reasons. One would be for insurance, which would give you a value to help you to obtain insurance for your quilt for protection of your items against loss. Also, it could be for sale, which would give you a value that would give you a retail price of what your quilt might bring in the open market. The third would be donation. If you're planning to give your piece to a museum or a historical society or some other entity, you may want an appraisal to help you with your taxes, to plan for the Internal Revenue Service paperwork.
I'm going to talk a little bit about what kinds of things you should expect at an appraisal and what maybe you should bring to the appraisal. First of all, bring your quilt, or have the appraiser find out where the quilt is so that you can tell them where it is in a show, for instance, if it's hanging. It's always helpful with antique quilts. If you know something about the history of the quilt, if you have some family history, if you know the maker, if you know a little bit about the area where it came from. Unfortunately, that's not always possible with antique quilts. Many times people will purchase antique quilts at shops or auctions and they won't have any history, but if you know something about your quilt, bring it with you. Now, we don't want long scrolls of family trees, but a succinct description of your family history and how it applies to that quilt so that it would possibly bolster the time period or the value of your quilt. With new quilts, we really like to know about the materials that you've used in their quilts. Carol and I are both pretty familiar with new techniques and things that are put into quilts, the kinds of embellishments, materials, but if you have used something special that costs a lot and you want to make sure that we know about that, make a listing of it so that we know what you've put into your quilt. If you have some technique that maybe you developed or it's a little bit unique to you, you might want to tell us about that so that we know how you constructed your quilt. A lot of times I will have people who come and they've won prizes with their quilts, and they have whole resumes that they bring to put with their quilts that tell where they've been displayed, what prizes they've won, and we always like to know that. So that's helpful.
If you would like to have your quilt appraised by an AQS appraiser, you may find one in your local area. You can find that on the AQS Quilts website, where there is, under the resources, a list of all the appraisers that are available throughout the country. If you're at a show, you may want to apply as an entrant for an appraisal to be done on your quilt, at which time one of the AQS appraisers would be able to do that for you while your quilt is hanging at the show. The other option would be that many of the times the shows will have a walk-in ability for people to come and have appraisals done, either quilts that you bring with you or you decide that your quilt in the show would be something you'd like to have appraised, and it can be done by an AQS appraiser at the walk-in booth here at the show.
And you don't always have to have an appointment for that. It's always nice to make an appointment, but sometimes there are times when you can just walk in with your quilt and you can have it done there without an appointment. So we are providing this for people so that they can have new quilts, old quilts, all kinds of quilts appraised. We'd like to really encourage you to have your quilts appraised because it can help in many situations. It'll give you some information about your quilt, and it's just a good thing to do for your quilts.